The grand ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers. I smoothed my simple black dress, feeling wildly out of place among the silk and diamonds. My mother, Diane, was in her element, holding court with a circle of influential guests. I took a steadying breath and approached her, hoping for a sliver of encouragement. Instead, she detached herself with a sharp smile. She pulled me aside, her voice a venomous whisper meant only for me. Gianna, for heaven's sake, try to blend in. Do not cause a scene. You already embarrass me just standing here. Her words were a physical blow. Before I could form a response, the event organizer, a serious-looking woman, approached us. Excuse me, she said, her gaze landing on me. Might I have a word in private? My mother's eyes lit up with a triumphant, cruel gleam. The organizer, whose name tag read Meredith, led me a few discreet steps away. Her expression was not unkind, which confused me. I'm sorry to pull you aside, Gianna, she began, her voice low. But your mother, Diane, made a specific request to the planning committee. She asked that you be seated at a separate table tonight. She felt a spot in the back would be less distracting. The air left my lungs. It was a deliberate, calculated move to hide me away. I felt the heat of shame creep up my neck as nearby guests pretended not to eavesdrop. I simply nodded, my throat too tight to speak. As I turned to walk toward the back of the room, defeated, I noticed a woman across the ballroom watching the entire exchange with a deep, focused intensity. I found the small, isolated table tucked near a service door. It felt like a neon sign announcing my failure. I was arranging my napkin when the woman who had been watching, Meredith, approached my table. She was elegant, with an air of quiet authority. Excuse me, she said, her voice gentle. Are you Diane's daughter? The one who handled all the complex logistics for last year's gala? I was stunned she knew. Yes, that was me, I confirmed quietly, my cheeks flushing. Meredith's brow furrowed, her expression turning troubled, as if a puzzle piece had just clicked into a disturbing picture. She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Can we talk privately after dinner concludes? Something about this situation is not adding up at all. Alone at my table, I picked at my food. The hum of conversation from the main tables was a constant reminder of my exile. Then, I caught snippets of a conversation from a nearby group. Diane was just saying how she had to step in last minute, one woman murmured. Said her daughter bit off more than she could chew with the vendor contracts. Another chimed in, she claimed she had to redo all the seating charts herself. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a one-time embarrassment. For months, my mother had been running a whisper campaign, systematically stealing my accomplishments and painting me as incompetent to everyone who mattered. My hands trembled in my lap. Just then, Meredith walked purposefully toward the small stage, holding a slim, ominous-looking folder. Meredith tapped the microphone, drawing the room's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention for a brief announcement, she began, her voice clear and commanding. My mother preened, likely expecting praise. The board has been conducting a thorough review of our event leadership structures. Moving forward, we will be implementing new oversight and reviewing all past contributions to ensure the highest standards of integrity. The polite applause was hesitant. My mother's smile had frozen on her face. She looked confused and tense. Meredith's eyes scanned the room and, for a fleeting second, they connected with mine. She gave me a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. A shiver of anticipation ran down my spine. After the final speech, as guests began to mingle, Meredith found me. Walk with me, she said. In a quiet hallway, she revealed the truth. The board noticed inconsistencies. The work Diane claimed credit for had a level of detail and skill she's never demonstrated. We suspected you were the real architect. Your mother's stunt tonight confirmed it. My heart hammered against my ribs. We need an independent audit of the past 3 years of event logistics. We want to hire you, privately, as a consultant to do it. This was my chance to uncover the full extent of the betrayal. To reclaim my work. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. I would keep this my absolute secret. For the next week, I buried myself in the digital files Meredith provided. The betrayal was staggering. I found emails where I had sent my mother perfectly drafted vendor agreements and seating plans. She had simply forwarded them to the board, removing my name from the documents and any mention of me from the body of the emails. She had presented my meticulous work as her own for years. The anger was a cold, hard stone in my stomach. I was navigating a folder of financial summaries when I found it, a subfolder marked Confidential, Board Eyes Only. My cursor hovered over it. Taking a deep breath, I clicked it open. What I found inside was far worse than stolen credit. The confidential folder contained budget approvals and invoices. My mother had been consistently selecting overpriced vendors who mysteriously offered her substantial consultant kickbacks. It was a clear conflict of interest, unethical, and a fireable offense from any volunteer position. It wasn't illegal, but it was a massive breach of trust that could shatter her social standing. As I was processing this, my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from my husband, Grant. The message was cold and direct. *, we need to talk about your behavior at the gala. Diane is very upset. *, the words felt like a betrayal all on their own. I confronted Grant when he got home. My behavior? She exiled me to a table by the kitchen. He sighed, as if I were a difficult child. Gianna, your mother meant well. She was trying to avoid exactly this kind of overreaction. You've always been too sensitive. The familiar dismissal cut deep. I looked him straight in the eye. Did you know, Grant? Did you know she was taking credit for all my work? He didn't answer immediately. He looked away, shifting uncomfortably. His silence and the guilt flashing across his face were all the answer I needed. He had known. He had let it happen. Something inside me broke and then solidified, stronger than before. That night, I moved my pillow and blanket into the guest room. It was a quiet, powerful declaration. Grant protested, but I didn't engage. I focused all my energy on the audit, creating a detailed timeline that laid bare years of manipulation. I separated my life from his, my schedule, my meals, my thoughts. I was building a wall not out of anger, but out of necessity. A week into my new routine, my phone rang. It was Meredith, and her voice was urgent. Gianna, I need to speak with you immediately. There's been a development. The board was presented with preliminary findings, Meredith explained over the phone. They've called an emergency meeting. They're preparing to vote on whether to remove your mother as head of the annual gala committee. It's happening in 3 days. We need your full, finalized audit report by then. The timeline was tight, but I was ready. This was finally happening. The justice I craved was within reach. As I hung up, a wave of nervous energy washed over me. The silence of the house was suddenly pierced by the sharp, insistent chime of the doorbell. I looked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. It was Diane. She swept in without an invitation, her expression a mask of faux concern. Gianna, darling, I just wanted to check on you. I hope you didn't take that little seating arrangement personally. You've always embarrassed so easily, you know. She patted my arm condescendingly. I didn't pull away, I just watched her, this stranger who was my mother. She continued her performance, but then she slipped. I heard a silly rumor, she said, her eyes narrowing. Something about you and some private audit? I hope you're not wasting anyone's time with nonsense. The air left the room. She was not supposed to know about the audit. There was only one person who could have told her. The realization was a cold splash of water. Grant had betrayed my confidence. He had told her everything. Seeing the understanding dawn on my face, Diane's mask of concern slipped, revealing a flash of pure panic. Grant mentioned it in passing. He was just worried about you, she stammered, backtracking. I felt a strange, powerful calm settle over me. I think you should leave now, Diane, I said, my voice eerily steady. She sputtered, trying to regain control, but the words wouldn't come. She turned and left in a flurry of indignation. Not 10 minutes later, Grant stormed in. What did you say to my mother? He demanded, his face dark with anger. She called me, absolutely devastated. I looked at the man I had called my husband. He was a stranger, an extension of my mother's will. Arguing was pointless. It would only drain the energy I needed to finish what I started. Without a word, I walked past him and into our bedroom. I pulled a suitcase from the closet and began packing essentials. He stood in the doorway, his anger turning to confusion. What are you doing, Gianna? Stop being dramatic. I ignored him, focusing on the task. An hour later, I was loading my bags into my car. I had booked a short-term rental using my consulting income. I was choosing distance, independence, and clarity. As I drove away, my phone chimed with an email notification. It was from Meredith. The subject line read, Emergency Board Meeting, your attendance required. The boardroom was quiet and tense. I stood at the head of the polished table, presenting my findings with a professionalism I didn't know I possessed. I showed them the emails, the doctored documents, the timeline of my work being repurposed. The board members listened, their faces growing increasingly grim and astonished. The evidence was undeniable. Just as I was finishing my presentation, the boardroom door swung open. Diane walked in, her face a picture of confident serenity. She had clearly been told about the meeting, but not its true purpose. She smiled warmly at the room, completely unaware that she was walking directly into the path of her own ruin. Diane, thank you for joining us, Meredith said, her voice cool. We've just been reviewing the event logistics audit. Would you care to comment on these findings? Diane's confidence didn't waver. She launched into her defense. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. I'm afraid my daughter, Gianna, has become quite vindictive since the gala. She's always been emotionally unstable, as you might have noticed. She's twisting things to get back at me. I remained silent, my hands clasped calmly in my lap. Then Meredith turned to the large screen. Let's look at the original email chains, then. The ones with the unedited timestamps and metadata. As the proof of my authorship flashed on the screen, the room went completely silent. Diane's smile finally shattered. The vote was swift and unanimous. Diane was officially removed from her decade-long leadership role on the Gala committee. There was no drama, no shouting. It was a sterile, procedural execution delivered in a quiet, carpeted room. The humiliation was in the silence, in the way the board members averted their eyes from her. The gavel fell, sealing her fate. As the meeting adjourned, Diane turned to me, her face a mask of pure, undiluted rage. You, she seethed, her voice trembling. You did this to me. You ruined everything. As the other board members filed out, one of them, an older gentleman named Mr. Sterling, lingered. He approached me while Diane was still gathering her shattered dignity. Gianna, on behalf of the board, we'd like to offer you the position you rightfully deserve. We want you to take over as the head of the Gala committee, officially and publicly. It was the ultimate irony. She was being offered the very position, the public recognition, that Diane had coveted and stolen for so long. It was the perfect victory. Yet, I hesitated. I felt a strange sense of incompletion. There was one more piece of my life I needed to put in place before I could truly accept. I returned to the house to talk to Grant. I found him in the living room, watching television. I told him about the board's offer. He scoffed. You're not actually considering it, are you? Gianna, you need to decline. Think of your mother. We need to keep the peace in this family. In that moment, I saw our future clearly, a lifetime of being small for someone else's comfort. The marriage was a hollow shell. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope I had prepared days ago. I placed it on the coffee table in front of him. I've already thought about it, I said quietly. He looked down and saw the words, petition for legal separation. The days that followed were peaceful. I focused on my new life in my small rental apartment. I met with a lawyer and began the fair, but firm, process of legal separation. I sought out a therapist to help untangle the years of emotional sabotage. I was not seeking vengeance, just boundaries. I was choosing growth and purpose on my own terms. My life was finally becoming my own. My phone rang, breaking the quiet. It was Meredith. Gianna, the board is ready to make the new leadership official. We'd like to make the announcement at the next gala, publicly, in front of everyone. The night of the next gala arrived. The ballroom was just as opulent as before, but I felt completely different walking in. I wore a deep blue dress and carried myself with a confidence that felt unshakable. Across the room, I saw Diane, seated as a regular guest. Whispers and sidelong glances swirled around her table. She looked small and diminished. Grant was there too, sitting stiffly beside her, his presence a clear declaration of his allegiance. I took a seat at a central table, my head held high. Then, the event's organizer walked onto the stage and tapped the microphone, calling for attention. "Good evening, everyone," the organizer began. "Thank you for joining us tonight. The board has an exciting announcement regarding the future leadership of this beloved event. After a thorough search, we are thrilled to appoint a new event director, someone whose integrity, skill, and innovative vision have already proven invaluable to our success." She paused for effect. "Please join me in welcoming our new director, Gianna Hartley." The room erupted in warm, genuine applause. I stood and smiled, acknowledging the crowd. I caught a glimpse of Diane's face. It was frozen in a mask of utter horror. Grant looked pale, as if he'd seen a ghost. As the applause died down, a chair scraped loudly. Diane stood up, her face contorted with fury. She stormed toward the stage, ignoring the gasps around her. "This is an outrage," she declared, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She has no right. She stole this position from me. She's a liar." A stunned silence fell over the ballroom. The organizer, however, remained perfectly calm. She leaned toward the microphone. The board's decision was based on a comprehensive audit of past events. The findings revealed significant ethical breaches in vendor selection and financial management under the previous leadership. The removal was fully justified. The audience's shock turned to visible disgust, their collective gaze shifting from me to my mother. The silent judgment of 500 people was a force too powerful to withstand. Diane's bravado crumbled. With a strangled sound, she turned and fled the ballroom, a humiliated figure in a glittering gown. Later, as the event wound down, Grant approached me. "Gianna, I had no idea. I see you now. I see what you can do. I'm so sorry." His apology, coming only after my success was undeniable, felt hollow. I looked at him with a calm I truly felt. "I know you are, Grant," I said. "But I'm done shrinking for anyone." I turned and walked away, leaving him and his empty words behind. In a quiet office off the ballroom, Meredith handed me a single document. "Your long-term contract," she said with a smile. I picked up the pen, my hand steady, and signed my name with a flourish. Stepping outside, the cool night air felt like a baptism. I was finally free from the years of being diminished, my dignity not just intact, but shining. I hadn't broken any rules or sought messy revenge. I had simply stepped into the light, allowing my own work and integrity to speak for itself. Winning wasn't about beating them, it was about becoming someone they could no longer control.